You know, I always kept a little speck of hope out for Denji, that maybe despite all the crap he is being put through, that maybe, just maybe, he'll find a way to crawl out of it, to stand on his own two legs as a free man. But after this chapter, I really don't think that we'll be seeing that. This story has quickly become the tale of a man, trying and failing to free himself from the tangled web of crap he has found himself wrapped up in. Hello, I am the Anonymous Weeb and I'm here today to talk about Chainsaw Man Chapter 95. Oh boy, we are getting closer and closer to that 100 chapter milestone. If we do reach that, I think that might very well be the final chapter of this series, as we are quickly running out of paths to continue down. And after this chapter we have seemingly ran out of another option if the end of the chapter is to be believed. And this is also a very short chapter, with not a lot to discuss as 90% of it was spent in combat. So, the chapter starts off with Makima feeding Denji her blood, from the hole she shot in her hand last chapter, while behind her several people float off the ground, connected to her by chains. And as Makima begins to pull on the cord in Denji's chest, calling out to him, the young man lashes out using one of his arms to sever her head from her body completely. At that same moment one of those people attached to Makima's chains has their head severed and Makima's flies back into place. This takes my interest because Makima has shown that she can be injured without auto-regenerating, but in this chapter, she immediately regenerates after taking a lethal blow. I must wonder if this is because Makima's regeneration only kicks in after a significant amount of damage is done, or if she is able to choose when to turn it on or off. Either way, if anyone has any hope of defeating her, then they need to be able to get around that ability of hers. As the head snaps into place, Denji attempts to pierce her chest with the saw, only for Makima to show that she is more than just a controller with no physical prowess of her own, as she steps to the side, pushing on Denji's forearm with one hand and punching him square in the jaw with the other. On another point, not a good move Denji, you are a chainsaw man, not a sword man. Saws aren't made for piercing but for ripping and tearing, so stop trying to punch her and practice your karate chops instead. As he begins to reel back, he swings up with his other arm, cutting Makima across the chest and spraying blood everywhere. But as before, the damage gets reflected on another one of those people suspended in the air behind her and she is left completely unharmed. Even the blood that erupted from the wound flows back into her, starving Denji from the blood he needs to regenerate. We all know Denji is not the sharpest tool in the shed, but you would think he would have realized by now that attacking her like this will not do anything but wear him out. I still personally think that in the background Kishibe and Kobani are planning something, but for now that remains to be seen, so for now it just looks like he is fighting a losing battle. So as pair continue to exchange blow for blow, with Makima landing a powerful uppercut to Denji's stomach, while he manages to take her head clean off for the second time. And as the head is flying back to her body, her headless body lashes out with a kick to his head, proving that even when her brain isn't attached to her body, she can still control it. So, the idea of just lopping off her head and putting it in a big metal box is out the window. Denji can return the attack in kind. As their fists clash, their individual arms go flying off, and before Makima can perform another attack she is cut clean in half by a kick. But the problem with Makima is that she basically has a stockpile of extra lives to call upon whenever she gets hurt, so she just regenerates and keeps on going. I wouldn't be surprised that if she can get burnt to ashes and just regenerate at the cost of some poor person spontaneously combusting. So, as she snaps back together, she manages to punch right through the Denji's back before blasting a hole right through his chest with her fists. Even then Denji refuses to fall and the fight continues, spraying blood everywhere. I guess because of Makima's ability she doesn't need blood to regenerate like other devils or fiends, but Denji certainly doesn't. He is losing a lot of blood during this fight. Then we get the most beautiful scene of this entire chapter, Makima holding Denji's head by the chainsaw top handle, while using her other hand to rip out his heart, Pochita, from his body, while in the background we can see the massive amounts of crosses that go far off into the distance. It is a beautiful scene that shows Makima's dominance over Denji. You can also take this as a sign of all those who have been killed by Makima's ability, the hundreds of graves as those who have been sacrificed for Makima's life, a mass graveyard dedicated to her sins. As she holds the heart, with the chainsaw cord coming out of it, and Pochito's malformed face on it, she begins talking again, but before that, I'm surprised how literal they were being when they said Pochito was his heart. I thought they meant in a more metaphorical sense, like they had fused into one entity with two consciousnesses. I didn't think that Pochito was just literally hanging out inside of his chest, taking on the form of a heart, but I guess that explains why at the beginning of the series, enemies were after Denji's heart. She tells Denji that despite her fighting with only her hands, he still could not win, and that is because he is not Chainsaw Man. In Denji's defense, it's hard to defeat someone who can just heal through anything you do, especially when all you have at your disposal is physical techniques. Maybe if the chains had some other ability we aren't yet aware of that might work, but as it stands he never stood a chance. As she rests herself down on her knees, surrounded by the corpses of those she had bound in chains, she asks him, how does she get him to give up on the world? How does she get the real Chainsaw Man back? And you know what, credit where credit is due, even in this terrible state he manages to spit blood on Makima's cheek. This causes Makima to become even more annoyed by him, saying that the Chainsaw Man does not spit in people's faces, he does not wear clothes, he does not speak, and that he must absolutely making a mess of everything that he does. That is some interesting thinking. Does that mean Makima finds the Chainsaw Man's inability to do things correctly something admirable? Well, I guess she truly is just insane at this point, which she proves immediately, as while looking down at him, with what I can only assume is contempt, she says that in all his ignorance, he was chosen as Chainsaw Man, and that if he is going to get between them, then he should just die. So Makima's yandere side is showing, and it is terrifying. And in that moment, she rips the heart fully free from him, taking away the last few cords connecting them while pushing Denji into the ground. And as he coughs up blood and falls to the ground with his internals once more spewing out, Makima looks down at him unfazed by it all, and that is where the chapter ends. With the end of this chapter we are left with some big question: is Denji dead? Where are Kishibe and Kobani? Did Denji think he could win this fight, or was this some sort of plan that he and the other two had set up? How will this affect Pochita? Will the Chainsaw Devil now free of its host revert to its original form, or will it become the little dog again? Will Makima try and implant the heart into someone else? Will she try to implant it into herself, so she can be together with her precious Chainsaw Man senpai? We can only wait and see how this goes. For now we can only theorize about where this series will end, because we all know that this series is coming to an end quite soon, unless the series takes a drastic change in direction, that is. With all that said and done, I've been the Anonymous Weeb and I'm signing off.